Welcome, I'm Lake. Today's conversation is one I've been looking forward to for some time. My guest is Dr. Mark Smith, a sociologist, the co-founder of the Social Media Research Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to open tools, open data, and open scholarship around social media. If you're ever wondered how information actually flows through sites like X, or why certain communities seem immune to the facts while others embrace them, or how ideas go viral while others vanish without a trace, Dr. Smith's work offers some of the clearest answers we have. The Foundation's flagship project, NodeXcel, has been an essential tool for researchers, journalists, and analysts around the world. It takes the complex mathematics of social network analysis and puts it into the hands of anyone comfortable with a spreadsheet. That democratization of insight matters enormously in an age when understanding networks isn't just an academic exercise, it is a civic duty. Dr. Smith's research has identified what he calls the six network structures, distinct patterns that emerge again and again when we map online conversations. These shapes tell stories about polarization, about community, about how broadcast differs from dialogue. Social media has evolved from the relatively open feeds of the early platform days to today's algorithmically curated experiences. These structures have shifted in ways that reveal a great deal about where we are and where we might be heading. Today, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We'll talk about how these network structures have changed as algorithms have taken the wheel. We'll explore whether network analysis can help us identify communities that are resilient to misinformation, a question with profound implications for democracy and public health. We'll also look at how generative AI is transforming the way researchers like Dr. Smith interpret and communicate the stories hidden in network graphs. We'll also get practical. NodeXcel has handled Twitter or X data brilliantly for years. And what about the new giants, TikTok, Threads, and shifting landscape of platforms that seem to rise and fall with each news cycle? I want to know what's coming next. And I'm sure this is something we'd like to share with our audiences. And because I myself run a research lab, the Smart Lab, I'm particularly interested in how academic institutions can work more closely with organizations like the Social Media Research Foundation, bridging the gap between theory and tools practitioners actually need. Finally, we'll talk about something I care about deeply, network literacy. There's a lot to get into, so let's begin. Mark, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
have you here.
Good to be
And
here.
I'd like to just quickly jump into my first topic of discussion today, which is going to be about the evolution of network structures. How have the six network structures evolved with the rise of algorithmic feeds compared to the early days?
Right, right. So I guess first we should touch on what are these structures. When we talk about social structures in social media, we mean specifically a concept called a social network, and a social network, not just platforms like Facebook, but in the academic literature, a social network is a collection of people, a population, and the set of connections among them. And those connections can be expressed online when you go to Twitter or X or the many other platforms. And let's say you reply to somebody or you repost or retweet them, you've created this thing, a connection between you and that other person. In a lot of our work, we look at what happens when we collect data about more than one connection, when we create a collection of connections and we begin to sort them out, looking at patterns in those collections of connections. And we find patterns. And as you say, there has been an evolution in those patterns. Early on, we were looking at patterns that indicated who the experts were, who the influencers were. And those patterns tended to be the person who is at the center of many connections pointing inward at them. We then have found other kinds of people where, for example, the connections go the opposite direction. So over time, different platforms have emerged. They tend to have a similar set of network structures. It's true, with a slight inclination towards more or less of certain patterns. So, for example, we have a website where you can see pictures of these networks, and you can compare Instagram networks to Twitter networks. And while they're both networks, there's no doubt about it. People are on there, they're little user accounts, they have lines going to each other based on who they've commented on or liked or replied to. The shape of an Instagram network, not the same as the shape of a Twitter network. And as our earlier research shows, all Twitter networks, not the same shape. We found at least 6 of these patterns. We're now seeing the emergence of potentially a 7th pattern. And as you say, perhaps as a result of AI entering into the population. It's not just users, not human beings anymore. And they're not just bots, which used to be fairly mechanical forms of content creation. Um, and it's worth noting that not every bot was a bad bot, not every human was a good human. So yes, things are changing over time. The platforms themselves are evolving, our use patterns are evolving, and the need for tools to make it so that a scholar who is not necessarily a software developer, which is a challenging skill set to have both of, a PhD in a social science and competence as a software developer, it's a hard thing to manage. What we want to do is make tools that are going to, in some ways, get you over that gap. Make it so that if you can make a pie chart, then you can make a network chart. You can have an idea, a topic, a question, a platform of interest, and take a tool that's a lot like making a pie chart and point it at a platform, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, any of these platforms. And there is a way, sometimes more convoluted than others, to get the data. The question then is, what do you do with it? And our solution is to see it as a network. And when we do that, we're able to see social structures. And those structures are changing from platform to platform and over time.
Very good. That's fascinating. And I wonder if it also raises something I've been thinking about a lot lately. If algorithms are reshaping these network structures, they're presumably also shaping how information and misinformation move through these communities, right? So I'm curious, can we actually see that in the network data? How can SNA or social network analysis tools, with tools like NodeXL, help identify the signatures of communities that are most resistant to misinformation?
Yeah, there is definitely an arms race of synthetic authenticity. In the old days, bots were relatively easy to identify, in part because they would often say that they were bots, but second, because they would often post at the top of the hour, at the top of the minute. In the first second of the first minute of an hour, that's when the message would appear, and you would see a little spike of messages that appeared at the top of the hour because a piece of software went, "Look at that, time to post," and it would post. That didn't necessarily mean it was a source of bad information, but it was an indicator of algorithmically authored content.
Hmm.
Uh, it is increasingly the case that as LLMs or chatbot technology, AI technology is evolving, those patterns of inauthenticity are becoming easier and easier to cover up, to camouflage. And so word choice, time of day, time of minute kinds of things, there is a growing sophistication in
Hmm.
inauthentic content creators. But I think the question is, are there any solutions? Are there any ways, even if the problem is getting more difficult over time, are there any problem solutions that are chasing after that? And the answer, I think, is yes. There are lots of things a computer could tell you that are entirely factual, that are essentially the result of accounting, that could help you as an information consumer make some kind of choice about the quality of the piece of information you just bumped into.
Okay.
Sadly, the tools we use to scroll through the information do not give us that information. And just as an example, somebody tells you that you should or should not engage in a medical practice. Have they ever posted a message that had a link to a medical journal?
Right.
Ever? Wouldn't that be a useful thing? There are maybe 1,500 well respected medical journals. Did they mention any ever at all? Well, it's not a governing, it will not determine absolutely whether or not the person is worthy of your attention, but it's a useful piece of information. And in 2026, that is trivial to calculate. If we are able to have them, write poetry, they certainly could calculate how many times you touched a well-respected resource. Now, people's opinions about what is a respectable resource differ, and let a thousand flowers bloom. But I'd like help knowing whether or not, when you post content, you've used any of the resources that I find respectable. And if you
Mhm.
didn't, I need to know that. So it is a more difficult information landscape, not only because there is the rise of these algorithmic actors, but there's just a lot of malfeasance and non-good faith content creation.
Mhm.
And we need better tools to protect ourselves, to really be selective about the kinds of information we decide to consume.
Great, great. So let me just pivot to something related to the foundations of what social network analysis is all about. Since we've been talking about patterns, signatures, stories that the data can tell us if we know how to read those stories. But for those who are from outside the field of social network analysis, just a brief outline here, we engage into something called network graphs, correct? And that requires a particular kind of expertise. There is a learning curve there. Now, for moving into the age of generative AI, which can be remarkably good at finding patterns and translating complexity into a narrative. So how do you see AI changing the way we interpret and communicate stories hidden within these network graphs, which of course requires a certain degree of skill set to read?
Yeah, I do think that we have and will continue to add machine support for interpretation.
Hmm.
It makes perfect sense that the machine would help you see what's in the data.
Right.
I'm reminded, though, of, let's say, looking at an ultrasound of a fetus, and a trained observer will say, "Ah, it's a boy."
Hmm.
But the average observer will go, "I see static, can you get a different channel?" You don't really have the eyes to see it. But the piece of information, "it's a boy," that certainly travels outside of that packet of information, and is a great takeaway. Similarly, when we look at networks, I've spent a lot of years looking at them, you've spent years looking at them. It's sort of, let's say, to switch metaphors, the way that a meteorologist might look at complex weather diagrams and go, "Oh, it's going to rain today." I might not be able to see that same pattern. But again, as the weather person would say, he or she is going to tell you it will rain today. So we have focused a lot of our work on making a tool that supports the exploration and explanation of network data. And so much so that you don't even really see the network anymore. It's just the results of network data. And network data has results that can be very practical and useful, like identifying the most important people by some definitions of importance and segmenting a population into clusters. Often those clusters have thematic or opinion coherence. They share a point of view. So you get a kind of automatic market segmentation and the identification of influencers.
Hmm.
So in the future, though, I think you will be seeing, and we're already experimenting with, taking these complicated graph structures and just handing them to the AI and saying, "Tell me a story."
Right.
And they do tell stories. Now, what we're looking at now is just how accurate those stories are. Um, because even though you get a good story, it doesn't mean that it's an accurate story. So we would like them to be both good and accurate. So
Right.
I would say that that's currently the state of affairs that we are looking at. While they can do that trick for you, they'll write you paragraph after paragraph of what you should see. The question is, are those really good paragraphs or
Hmm.
not? If it can be shown that they're very reliable in that, then you're right that this is a really great way to automate the reading of the tea leaves, as you would.
Mhm.
Um, and it is true that it takes some time to develop those skills. And with better machine augmentation, maybe we can make the average person into a professional weather forecaster or network scholar.
Great, great. Thank you. Yeah. So it does sound like that the tools that we have out there for understanding networks are evolving rapidly, especially in the age of AI. And there is a learning curve there for us as well. But of course, the networks themselves are also evolving, aren't they? So we're in a very dynamic environment. Twitter, for example, now X, was the franca of social network research for years. But the platform landscape has pretty much changed today. We have TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, and the list keeps growing. What's on the horizon for Node Excel to handle the scale and the structure of data from these newer platforms?
Yeah, yeah. First, we do continue to build new bridges to platforms as they emerge, and
Mhm.
as we have resources, we tend to eventually catch up with the platforms and make it so that from within NodeXL you can go to an importer and draw in that data. We've also partnered or integrated with other software from the academic community that make data collection much easier, especially in the face of challenging platforms. So I'm thinking in particular of the University of Amsterdam and the project from the DMI group. It's called Z-Schwimmer,
Mhm.
and a shout out to them. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Uh, it's a very useful tool that shifts data collection from collection per se to recording. And by that, I mean it sits inside your Firefox web browser. And as you go to Instagram or to TikTok and you scroll, it records what you see. And our contribution is to make it so that when you download that file that ZSchwimmer will generate for you, NodeXL will now extract the network from that. So
Mhm.
that has opened dramatically the number of platform endpoints that NodeXL can access because essentially they're providing a data importer. What we have done is made it so that we automatically recognize not only their format, so you can go to a menu and you can import one of their files, we'll say, aha, it's not only a Zschwimmer data set, but it's TikTok or Threads or so on. We'll recognize it and apply the right transformations to it and make it very easy to import. So there are both positives and negatives out there. I would argue that a really big positive would be something like what the European Union is doing in mandating that if a kind of stock marketplace of ideas is operating in your culture, in your jurisdiction, then accountants should have access to forensic analysis of what happens on that platform. That is a legal requirement in the EU, not so in the United States, and perhaps unlikely now to appear in the United States. But maybe I could suggest to people that that's something that they should want,
Mhm.
that if platforms are going to operate in this kind of mimetic marketplace where ideas are coming up and going down, that it would be nice to have transparency into that marketplace. And in the most capitalistic kinds of motivations, we do want accountants for the stock market. We want them for the financial markets. It seems to me that stocks are secondary to the value of ideas and that we should certainly want accountants for the marketplace of ideas. So that is really part of our goal to improve the quality of information in these marketplaces by providing accounting to show
Right.
where's the higher and the lower quality information.
Wonderful. That's great. So I just want for our audiences who are listening and watching this to appreciate and understand what Node Excel offers to them. It's a fabulous tool that I've been using for years, and the kind of value it offers is second to none, I feel. So from our conversation, it's very obvious that the tools are expanding to meet the new challenges and new skills of data. But I want to zoom out for a moment and think about the people who might use these tools, particularly students at universities, at the graduate, undergraduate, doctoral level, and also early career professionals, right? So we talk a
Absolutely.
lot about social capital, about the value of networks for opportunity and resilience. how can network literacy, actually understanding how these networks work, empower students and these early professionals to build stronger social capital for their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'll note NodeXL is a network analysis tool that seeks to support, from an end-to-end perspective, a non-programmer's experience of getting data, analyzing it, visualizing it, reporting on it, and then going into a dashboard environment to explore and potentially explain it. We're not the only tool out there. And there is some really wonderful work by Dr. Veronica Espinoza, and if you type her name in, maybe the word NodeXL or the word Medium, she posts a lot of her content on Medium. She has a lovely review of 16 different social network analysis tools. And so I want to be clear that we are one of a collection, a genre of tools. I, of course, am proud of ours, think we have unique features, but there are 15 at least other out there. Uh, it I think we're in a period of time that is similar to before online map tools were available. Before Google Maps, before Apple Maps, there was MapQuest,
Mhm.
but there was the day before MapQuest. And so the idea that a map is always in our hands and we can easily figure out three very important questions, the answers to three important questions, and that is, where am I? Where do I want to be? And how do I get there? That problem's really, really solved for geography, for the for the geographic landscape, but it is not at all solved
Mhm.
for the social landscape. Those three questions. Where am I in my network? Well, where is my network? I feel it a little bit, but I don't have a quantifiable, objective, model of that. I have social structure in my mind, but I don't have a data set. So where am I in my network? Where do I want to be? I know that you're a successful person. I might want to model myself on your activities. As you say, it's not only know how, it's know who. And so having a more sophisticated notion of where you want to be is one of the benefits of having a network map. And
Right.
so then there's the question number three, how do I get there?
Mhm.
And so for early career professionals, those three questions are really important. Where are you on the academic or the professional landscape? Who is the person that you seek to become more like? How do you make that journey? So they're very similar to the Google Maps questions, but we're in a before the time of Google Maps time.
Mhm.
There isn't an app on your phone that you whip out and just go to and go, Lake's where I want to be. Where is Lake and where am I? And how would I
Mhm.
get to from where I am to where he is? That's not something that is just readily available. So
Mhm.
now it is available, just not readily available. You have to start learning one of the 15 or 16 tools that Dr. Espinoza talks about in those Medium articles. Our tool is a tool that you could go to get some of that data and begin to ask those questions. Where am I? Where do I want to be? How do I get there?
Right.
So once you start to see networks, there is this moment in which you cannot unsee them.
Mhm.
And you see the world as if there were these invisible strings connecting people to people. And you quickly notice that not everybody has the same number of strings. And so, better awareness of the sociological landscape to me seems like a really good thing for everyone to have, but certainly for young professionals seeking to navigate their career.
Right.
It is almost certainly going to be the case that who you know will have a consequence. And this
Absolutely.
is a way of accounting for that, keeping literally a spreadsheet of who you know.
And this is a very important takeaway, how this network literacy empowers individuals, especially making them more resilient in a very competitive job market, like in for their careers. That brings me to something closer to home. So as you are aware, I run the Smart Lab or the Social Media Analytics Research Lab, and I'm always looking for ways to make our research more connected to the people, to the tools that people actually use, right? And NodeXL being one of them. So you've already built something that serves as a bridge between scholarship and practice. So how do you think labs like mine can collaborate more effectively with your foundation to close that gap between academic theory and industry tools and practice?
Right, right. I would say that Node Excel remains largely used by the faculty person, the graduate student, their students, undergraduate students. We do have a growing set of users who are from NGOs, public health organizations, civic organizations, and law enforcement organizations. Uh, so there are practical real world applications. So I would say that bringing tools into organizations like the Smart Lab and
Mhm,
exposing them to students so that they know that there are ways that they can participate without becoming the data scientist.
mhm,
The instruction learn to code is great, but I was also learning sociology or anthropology or political science, and doing both is not easy. That would be like telling surgeons to also juggle. So we really think that with better tools in the hands of research groups, we will reach the group of people who are leaving education and moving into the private sector, where it might be more natural for them to bring up a tool that says, we can see the web of connections among the population. There is an app for that. And there is a way to get that data from all sorts of sources. Many government websites have data about who did what with whom. There's like the trade database of, which country sent how much to which other country or to our country and where did it go. So any data like that is a network. So lots of data sources out there, lots of ways to bring network thinking, a connected view of the world, into professional spaces. And our tools just make it, and a lot of these other tools now make it so that you don't also have to be a Python developer,
mhm.
which is it's a challenging hurdle to get over.
True, absolutely. Well, I think we've already reached the 30-minute mark, and I wanted to make sure that we can compress as much useful information as possible. Thank you so much for your thoughtful conversation. We've moved from the architecture of online communities to the frontiers of AI, from the challenges of new platforms to how the next generation can see and build their own networks and benefit from this. It's rare to cover so much ground with such clarity in such a short amount of time. What I'll take away is something simple but powerful from today's conversation. The patterns are there in every conversation, every community, every platform. Your work gives us the tools to see them, and seeing them is where change begins. For those watching, I'd encourage you to explore the Social Media Research Foundation and the Node Excel project. The links are below, and also you can see the logo there in the background. Um, and Marc, thanks again for your time and insights. I'm Lake. If you found this valuable, subscribe and share it with someone who would appreciate it. Stay curious, stay connected, keep asking questions, and see you next time.